Hey guys, welcome back to Murder in Retrograde. We've got some breaking news for you, so we're really just gonna dive into it. So let's get to it.
Okay.
I'm Jenna Kaplan,
I'm Brittany Sheffrin.
and this is Murder in Retrograde.
Welcome, everybody. Well, there has been a lot of stuff going on lately. And so we wanted to make sure and give you all of the updates. Obviously, the Derek Chauvin trial wrapped up yesterday, George Floyd trial, whatever you want to call it. And he was found guilty on all counts. But everybody's like, okay, what does that mean? So he was found guilty on 2 counts of murder and 1 count of manslaughter. And just to remind everybody, it was 9 minutes and 29 seconds that he kneeled on George Floyd's neck on May 25th, 2020. So Chauvin faces a minimum sentence of 12.5 years and a maximum of 40 if he serves terms for each charge consecutively. His bail was revoked and he was immediately taken into custody. And I don't know if you saw, but when he was being led away, he had something written on his hand and
Mhm.
everyone was talking about it. It was his attorney's phone number,
Oh.
which why doesn't he already have his attorney's phone number? I feel like that's not true. It was something else. And prosecutors are seeking a longer sentence specifically because of the fact that this murder was witnessed by a 9-year-old girl who said that it made her feel, quote, sad and kind of mad. I mean, what legacy does that, seeing that at 9 years old? I mean, that's going to run through her entire family. um like I always think about that, like the fear of police, like what is she going to teach her kids, rightfully so, based on what she saw.
Yeah.
The sentencing portion of the trial is set to begin in 2 months, and that so in the trial there was testimony from 45 witnesses and it was televised. Lots of people watched it. I wish I watched more. I didn't have the time. I'm sure I'll go back now.
Mhm.
um, but family attorney Ben Crump, which you might remember was also the family attorney for Breonna Taylor,
Mhm.
said, quote, "Guilty, painfully earned justice has finally arrived for George Floyd's family. This verdict is a turning point in history and sends a clear message on the need for accountability of law enforcement," end quote. Like, yes, 100%. And President Biden also, after the verdict, said, quote, "It was a murder in full light of day, and it ripped the blinders off for the whole world to see the systemic racism." And that's a big deal. I mean, it might not seem like it, and love him or hate him, you might not have voted for him. It's a really important thing that the head of our country said that,
Mhm.
acknowledge systemic racism, because once you acknowledge it, you have to change it.
Yeah.
We're not going to go backwards from here. Um, and I also just wanted to remind everybody that all of this happened because 17-year-old Darnella Frazier took out her phone and captured the entire thing and posted it to her Facebook. Now, I'm sure a lot of other people pulled out their phones too, but that was the video that was used. And it just goes to show you, you can do something,
Mhm.
if you're too afraid to step in, if you just take a video of it. I mean, look at Rodney King. Like all of those crimes, I think would have just been brushed under the rug had they not been videoed. Like Breonna Taylor. If we had Breonna Taylor on video, if we had the body cam footage, I guarantee you there would be far more talked about,
Mhm. Yeah.
And those body cams, I thought they were going to help us so much, but you hear all of these cops turning them off and all
Yeah.
of that. But it is still progress. And I also have seen so many good cops come out and
Yeah.
say and do, for example, presentations of showing like where your gun is and where your taser is. And I'm speaking in regards to, of course, his name is escaping me right now, but the young man that was shot
Mhm.
by the woman, Kim. Her name was Kim. Anyway, so I just find it to be really important that people keep that in mind. And if you see something, record it. You don't know what you might capture and how you might change the world, because our world has been changed by this verdict. And another thing that makes this different is that a lot of the police were honest and gave their real assessments of what happened. And there was no code of silence, as we've seen in the past. In fact, the Minneapolis police chief, Madaria Arradondo, testified against Chauvin, saying, quote, once there was no longer any resistance, and clearly when Mr. Floyd was no longer responsive and even motionless, to continue to apply that level of force to a person proned out, handcuffed behind their back, that is no way, shape, or form is anything that is by policy, end quote. That's a big deal that the cops are coming out and saying that no, he was wrong. And it's a big deal for the good cops. You know,
Yep.
like I think that is a really good thing to do because
You
there are
should.
so many amazing law enforcement officers who are so good at their job and we need them
Well, yeah, and
for
if
a
you
lot of
see,
things.
yeah, and if you see the head of the department like speaking and saying, no, this wasn't right, then that's going to show other cops that like you can speak up and you're not going to be retaliated on or penalized or some way. So it is
Yeah.
a really big deal.
And it's not going to happen overnight, and it's
No.
not going to happen in every department, but hopefully this is just a starting point, and it just gets better and better.
Yeah.
So with Chauvin's second-degree murder conviction, that one is the most serious, and the burden of proof was lower for the other charges. To get a conviction on this second-degree murder charge, the prosecution had to prove that Chauvin caused Floyd's death while committing or attempting to commit another felony, in this case, third degree assault. To show that Chauvin committed third degree assault, prosecutors had to prove he, quote, intentionally inflicted bodily harm on Floyd and that this resulted in substantial bodily harm, end quote. And this is according to Mark Osler, a professor of law at the University of St. Thomas. I started to look into Chauvin and see what other cops thought of him when I saw all of these people coming out.
Mhm.
He had a real bad
Oh,
reputation,
yeah.
real bad. He did not fit in with other cops. He rarely socialized. One former colleague told the New York Times in a group setting he would never connect. He just stood there as a small child. Three other officers involved in the arrest that preceded Floyd's murder are scheduled to be tried as well. Their trials start in August, and they are being charged with aiding and abetting murder and manslaughter.
Yeah, because you're just standing there not doing anything. That's what happens.
It's just as bad, in my opinion.
Hmm.
And of course, Chauvin will most likely appeal his verdict, but from what I've looked at uh, and listened to from attorneys, his chances are really bad at getting
Yeah.
any kind of appeal. So that is kind of the synopsis of what we have gathered on Derek Chauvin. And I saw George Floyd's daughter said, "My daddy changed the world." And
Mm.
it's just really sweet pictures of her online, Gianna. Um, but unfortunately, as much progress as that brought us, just 25 minutes before this verdict, another innocent Black girl was shot. It's a heinous murder, and it was committed by a police officer, and it's a child, 16-year-old. This girl, she was in foster care at the time. Okay, she has not had the easiest life. Her name is Ma'Khai Bryant, and she's in Columbus, Ohio. She was in her home and she knew that she was getting jumped. It sounded like some sort of like gang was after her. She saw the girls outside of her house. One of the girls had a knife. Understandably so, she was terrified. So what did
Yeah.
she do? She called 911. And she called her grandmother and she called some relatives and said, "I need help." So by the time the cops arrive, she's already getting jumped. And there is a knife, and Makia was able to wrestle it away from these other girls. So when the cop arrives, he sees her trying to defend herself and kind of like moving the knife, and the girls are all standing there, and they'd all been fighting. And all the police officer said was, "Get down, get down." And then he shoots Makia 4 times in the chest, 4 times. This is a group of young girls.
I don't understand how we go from 0 to 100. Like your job is to de-escalate. So how is coming in guns blazing de-escalating? I don't understand.
to me, it shows me they shouldn't be a cop.
100%.
Like like this whole thing of oh, well, it's such a hard job and it's you could die. You signed up for that. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? A 16-year-old girl in her home calling 911 should not think, are they going to kill me when they come? She should be more than comfortable calling and getting protection. And then somebody shows up and shoots her. Like there's so much wrong with that. There's
And
so
here's
much
like
wrong.
the other thing that's kind of, and not that I don't agree with like shooting to try and get the person down or whatever. But let's say worst case scenario, you think someone's real is gonna like he thought, let's say that she was gonna stab someone and she was like real close to being able to do that. What happened to like shooting in the shoulder or in the leg or somewhere that's just going to knock you down? So then cops can come in and handcuff you or do whatever they need to do. But like I
I
don't
think about that
understand
all the time,
how
and
it's in
and
the
it
chest.
it also makes me mad that we're even saying that because
I know.
they don't need to shoot first.
Right.
They have a
Right.
taser. If they
Right.
can remember which one is their taser and which one is their gun, they
Yes.
can use a taser. They can
100%.
use, I mean, hello, whatever. Use your, what do they have? Batons? I mean, you should be confident
Yeah.
enough that you can handle the situation. Now, if she was running straight at him
Right.
with a knife, okay, he's going to be hurt. He should protect himself, but you should also be willing to run into a situation if you have that job. Enough of like, they should be protected, that sort of thing. No, you should feel so confident in your training,
Yeah.
and the training should be better. Like these cops
Yeah.
are out there with
Yes.
no psychological training, well, very little of, if any, behavioral analysis, all of the things that they're having to deal with. So it's no wonder that this is, you think about it, some of these cops become cops 22, 23. You give a guy a souped up car and a shotgun and a gun and a badge, and you think that nothing's going to happen. Like, I mean, again, not all cops, but
Right.
there has got to be a better vetting system for
Yes.
law enforcement
I agree.
because at this point, it
And
is.
like, I mean, I think they do, but there needs to be more of like a full like mental evaluations as well as more training. It just needs to be better. We can do better. Let's do better.
And more mental health. I mean, maybe
That's
some
a
of these people have had something happen. A lot of law enforcement has been in the military. God knows we don't take care of our military when they
right.
come home. You could have PTSD. You could go into law enforcement, and it could be something that's totally understandable if you're going to therapy every week and dealing with it, which
Yeah.
law enforcement should provide. And I think that they do,
We
but
do, but then there's like stigmas and all this
that's what I
stuff.
mean.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's just. So much that needs to be done, but it can be. I'm
Yeah.
so sick of people saying like just throwing it off and oh, it's never going to happen. Like no, no, no. It has to happen.
Hmm.
These kids are dying every day. Uh, so this was just really awful. There's a 10-second video of it. I'm unable to watch it, and there was even a man that you can hear afterwards, and he says, quote, "You didn't have to shoot her, she's just a kid, man." And the officer responds, "She had a knife, she went at her." So he meant she went at her, like protecting herself from another person. At what point is a cop supposed to you know nothing about what's happening? And
Yeah.
maybe it also has to do with dispatch, because there's back and forth. Some people say that the call said there's a woman trying to stab somebody. Somebody said it was just somebody's being jumped. So anyway, I don't know where the
A
breakdown is,
miscommunication. Yeah.
but running at a group of kids and shooting, I think you should feel a little bit more capable in your communication skills, in your de-escalation skills, all of the above.
And like, don't shoot
um
to kill, maybe. If you feel like that's your only option, let's not try and kill people. More
And why
people.
isn't that questioned? I mean,
I don't know.
if you have to, yes, I think police should be able to shoot somebody if they're going to be killed, if somebody else is going to be killed.
If their life's in
But
danger,
yes,
yeah.
an extremity, like 4 times in the chest, you know what you're
That's
doing. You're
extreme, yeah.
murdering somebody.
Yeah.
Ugh, So she was pronounced dead later at the hospital, and there's an interim police chief, which I feel like all of these cases we cover, there's an interim police chief, which tells me something's going on.
Yeah.
His name is Michael Woods, and he said state law allows police to use deadly force to protect themselves or others, and investigators will determine whether the shooting was such an instance. Ohio's Bureau of Criminal Investigation is now reviewing the killing following an agreement with the city last summer for all police shootings to be handled by independent
Independent.
investigators under Attorney General Dale Yost's office. Hallelujah. Okay, so there we go. Something is going to be different. An
Yeah.
independent group is going to look at this. So, again, there's a little bit more progress. Columbus Mayor Andrew Ginther mourned the loss of the young victim, but defended the officer's use of deadly force. He said, quote, "We know based on the footage, the officer took action to protect another young girl in our community," end quote. Another young girl who brought the knife. So clearly I'm just like beside myself. I was so happy about George Floyd getting, justice, and then this.
Yeah.
So
It's happening
2
far
steps
too
forward,
often.
5 steps back, but we're not giving up. Jenna
No,
and I are
no.
taking on the world. And Jenna has even more for us
Yeah.
because God
Just
love her. She never stops. And wait, can I just say,
what?
it's her birthday. It's my beautiful Taurus's birthday.
Thank you, friend. Oh, it's like sad news. Happy news.
I
Sad news.
know.
um, but yeah, the one thing I want to say on that too is look at where we were a year ago and then look at where we are now. It's very small progress, but it's progress. And I just hope that
Yeah,
we keep building on that. So
you're
kind of,
absolutely right.
yeah, taking for some reason I find myself being sucked into these unfortunate missing person cases, which is I don't know how this is all coming to me, but it is. And I found that with this particular woman that I'm about to talk about, it's not really being covered as far as I can tell.
That's what's
And
bothering you. You can't stand that she's not getting attention.
yeah, probably. So, Sierra Hunter, she's a 19-year-old girl from, and I'm not 100% how to say this, so don't come at me, Oklahoma, but it's Anadarko, Oklahoma. And this was on Easter weekend. She apparently went missing and hasn't been seen, but there were reports on April 8th that she had been seen in Austin, Texas. So a lot of this, like I said, I found like 3 news articles that had covered this. So a lot of this information is with Murder News because they actually had interviews with the family of Sierra. So she's, this beautiful young indigenous woman, which is we're going to get to later because this is something that's happening in our country right now that is not really being talked about. But so I said, like she said, she's gone missing. So it seems like she was, I don't know the details, but her sister was her guardian. And so Chelsea Hunter is Sierra's older sister and, like I said, her guardian. I'm not really sure of the details, but she had stated that her sister Sierra had called her from a Texas number on April 8th and that she had seemed upset. So she goes on to quote and say, she was clearly in distress. She was hysteric. She was saying she had said a lot of things that didn't make sense. And she revealed that she was unaware that her sister had even been missing at this point. So she had then gotten a call from her biological mother, who had later told Chelsea that she needed her help because Sierra had been missing for 11 days. She asked the mom if she'd reporting her missing, and she said no, she hadn't. So immediately Chelsea had went and reported her sister missing. Um, she has a private investigator also working, and he had tracked this phone call to Austin, Texas, to a man. And this is where things get real weird. So his story, I don't know who, maybe the private investigator or cops, I'm not really sure where this is coming from, but his story is that Sarah was on the side of a road in Austin, Texas with no shoes, and he picked her up and took her to his house. And stated that Sierra went to the bathroom for 2 hours, and when she finally came out, she was bald. He said that, quote, it freaked him out, so he drove her somewhere in Austin and made her get out of his car. He said that he had watched her walk towards the woods. Okay. Yeah. So the private investigator had told Chelsea that this man has violent felonies on his record and was once a registered sex offender in Texas. And Chelsea saying that she thinks Sierra is obviously in danger and homicide is helping to investigate this. But she was also saying that she didn't think Sierra would have just gone to Texas like on her own accord. She did say that she thought her mental state might have been a factor. So she said, quote, Sierra's been having schizophrenic outbreaks and it's untreated and it's been a really tough year for her. Her mental health was getting so bad and I think there was a little bit of drug use. Sierra's
Mm.
supposed to be on medication for her schizophrenia, but she has been trying to handle it herself and has not been following any regimens. So
Let
then,
me just say that for schizophrenics, it is so painful because they don't want to take their medication because it makes them feel so
weak or
deadened because
something.
it
Yeah.
just makes them flatline.
Yeah.
And the whole point of, I mean, schizophrenia is paranoia. So you
Yeah.
also get paranoid. Like, are these drugs making me this way? When you said shaved her head, I was like, it's a break. She's having a psychotic break or she's off her meds or something like that. And that is so heartbreaking to hear that she was in that state, and our country
Yeah,
needs so
so
much help with
I
mental health.
it's really sad because it kind of reminds me, I mean, not really, but kind of reminds me of Elisa Lam, like something obviously triggered a mental break of some sort. And then you see these erratic behaviors, which then lead to something tragic. And it is so hard. I mean, we don't know at this point because no one has seen her. No one,
And sorry if I'm wrong, was it her that called and was speaking?
Sierra called her sister Chelsea and her brother, I think is I forget his name, and she was acting erratic and saying crazy things. And she said something like, "Do I have any plans today?" And she said it sounded like she was talking like someone was there with her, and she didn't want them to
Hmm.
hear. But it was just erratic. Was kind of the message that they gave. Uh,
Also similar to Erica Lloyd, because the
yeah,
last convo with her parents, she was speaking really rapidly and then she just got lost. So yeah, it
yeah.
sounds like mental illness or
Well,
mental health break.
and it would be totally understandable after the year we've had, right? Like
Absolutely. Who hasn't gone through something?
I mean, it's interesting isn't the right word, but you are seeing a lot more of this happening right now. And I think it's all due to this crazy year that we've had, and everyone's mental health has been affected in some way or another. I mean, there's a lot of family-based crimes going on right now, and just stuff like this is happening, and it's really sad.
Especially in the
Um,
indigenous community, because like alcoholism is very high and also schizophrenia is really high. It's genetic in that in most of their culture. So it's just, yeah, it's a recipe for disaster.
Yeah, so Chelsea went on to say Anadarko is a small town and the murder rate is high, and it's a lot of Native American people. It's a Native American community, and there are literal organizations for missing and murdered Indigenous women. Like, that is how many Native American women go missing. It's just not big in the media. And then Oklahoma News 9 says that Sierra is a member of the Wichita and affiliated tribes. Her case drew the interest of the groups working to bring awareness to these missing Indigenous women. It says, quote, we have to be for our people and bring light to it because it's an epidemic. It says the missing and murdered Indigenous People Center chapter of Oklahoma President Carmen Harvey. And then she went on to say, so when one Native American person hurts and they're missing their family, we all hurt.
Hmm.
So I think this is something too you and I are going to probably circle back to a little bit more because we've talked about doing these cases about Indigenous women and the what's happening in that community. And I don't think a lot of people really know about it. So I'm hoping we'll have that episode for you guys sometime in the near
Yeah.
future. In the meantime, if anyone has information about Sierra, where she could be. They are asking you to reach out to Austin Police Department or the Anadarko Police Department, and we'll put the phone numbers and all of that on our website about that. So it's just hurts my heart.
It's so awful. I
Um,
mean, what that community has been through is enough. And then on top of this, all of the women that have been taken, it's something
yeah,
needs to be
and
done.
while we're waiting for our episode, I do think Murder Squad had talked about this maybe like a year ago
Yeah.
or something. So if
Yeah.
you are interested and you have no idea what we're talking about, maybe go to their podcast and see what you can find, because they are really
There's
good.
also a lot of True Crime Garage has done a lot of Indigenous missing women that I know of for sure.
Yeah. And then not related, more kind of like a PSA for everyone is while I was kind of reading up on Sierra, for some reason this kind of popped up. And I don't know if you've heard about this, but apparently on TikTok, there are users that are warning women that a group of men have declared April 24th National Rape Day.
No.
Yes. Okay. So it says it's unclear where this trend originated or why, but according to Tech Times, 6 men promoted this against women and it has gone viral on different platforms. So this is your message to protect yourself, do whatever you can to be vigilant and be aware, trust your gut. Like, please be careful. And if you see any of these men or anyone promoting this on TikTok, you can report, or Instagram, any of, they all have places where you can report videos. So please do so and please protect yourself because that's a really scary thought.
There's another thing that I don't know if a lot of people know, but if you ever come out of your house, your apartment, whatever, and you see in the snow, in the dirt, if you see like the number 1 and an F or the number 2 and an F, that means there's one female and she's alone. And a lot of people do this a lot. Like this, there was a TikTok and a girl came out and she's like, "Can somebody explain this to me?" And the snow on top of her trash can said 1F, and then on the in front of her door 1F, and a bunch of people were like, "Get out of there." That's a lot of gang members do that if they know there's a woman that you can get in, or other criminals. So if you ever see anything like that, if you ever see anything written down in the ground, call 911, report it right away, and get locks on every window and every door. And if you have sliders, get a dowel, wooden or a 2x4, and put it
Yeah,
there so they can't open the slider.
we do that on ours. That's crazy. I've never heard of
Yeah.
that.
Insane.
Jesus. Well, this has been a really intense episode.
Yeah.
Lots to digest and think about, and just protect yourselves. Make sure you guys subscribe so you don't miss episodes or updates. We're here on YouTube and on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to podcasts. So make sure to subscribe, leave comments, reach out to us at murderandretrograde.com, and you can also find our sources there.
Yes, lots to look at there. And our little Taurus over there is working on some TikToks. So be ready to
Be
see
nice.
some really good content on TikTok. We're going to cover our social media bases, even though Twitter is annoying. But
No, we're
you
not
can
doing
catch us on Instagram always, and on our website. And please comment, tell us what you like, what you want to hear. We read every comment and we get so excited when they're nice.
I know. It's such a good feeling to feel like you are enjoying what we're putting out there, because that's the goal,
Yeah,
right?
totally.
So be safe, trust your gut.
Trust your gut, and happy birthday, Jenna.
Thanks. See you guys next time.
Adios.
Bye.